This is A Few Good Fights. I'm your host Rob. I'm joined by Sean as always.
Hello, babies.
You gave it.
Yeah. The people asked for it.
They did ask for it. I heard Dave asked for it today.
Yeah.
It's a weird week in MMA because the big news is Joe Rogan versus Stephen A.
Big news
Smith.
has nothing to do with a fight.
Nothing to do with a fight, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about Cris Cyborg getting her big win, 4 major titles, if you want to call all them promotions major. And let's talk about the GOAT situation in women's MMA. I also want to talk about the future of heavyweight, Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic, and of course the big win at the weekend for the heavyweights in Curtis Razor Blades, and plenty of other news. And also we have loads of fan questions today, Sean, and some really juicy ones, so you want to tune in and stay tuned in to the end of the show because they're good. So this is the big MMA news, and I want to quickly talk about some of the fights that happened last week, but more so the fallout from them, because I think there's some interesting pieces, especially the Cyborg stuff. But I first want to start with Sean. Curtis Blades beating Junior Dos Santos in the second round of their fight at UFC Fight Night. Raleigh? I don't know.
I look at it as some rally, but that's definitely wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely wrong. Yeah, that's probably the only way you can say it wrong. But anyway, what was your thoughts on Curtis Blades getting this win? And is he a legit contender at heavyweight now?
Yeah, at heavyweight at the minute in its current climate, yeah, he is. Do I think he causes much of a problem to the likes of Stipe and that? Nah, I'm not sure. But I do think there's some interesting fights. I mean, he looked impressive beating Junior. Junior's kind of one of those guys who's a bit of a yardstick.
Yeah.
Generally. Definitely at the tail end of his career now. But yeah, he looked good. Yeah.
I mean, I think he's the youngest ranked fighter at heavyweight. And heavyweight is one of these
doesn't actually
divisions.
say a lot.
No, it doesn't say a whole lot. But like heavyweight is just historically a really aging division. Like they're really old. I'd say the average age is probably 33, 34 probably.
Mid to late or early to mid 30s.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm going to say 35. So he has that going towards him. He's only lost to Francis Ngannou. Not a huge shame, but he did get finished in both of them fights.
He'll be around a while at heavyweight.
100%. He's 28. He'll be around. And he's calling for a title fight next. I thought it was funny because he was in the cage calling for a title fight while he was being interviewed by Daniel Cormier, who most likely should and will get the next title fight. I thought that was funny.
That's quite an ironic just thing to happen, isn't it?
Yeah,
with DC and the heavyweights.
Yeah,
it's happened a couple of times now with different heavyweights.
I know, yeah.
So,
it's kind of weird, but I think he's definitely there. But one thing he did say, he was on Ariel's show, and he did say that if he's not getting the next title fight, he wants to fight the winner of Ngannou and Jairzinho. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, fair play to you. Like, putting your... Like, he could have easily said, I deserve the next title fight. I'll wait. But no, he's saying, I'll fight the guy, potentially, who beat me twice. And I think that's good confidence, and I like that.
It is. I mean, I'm not sure if the Ngannou fight makes a whole pile...
For him, definitely. Ngannou, I mean. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, yeah.
So, like, if Ngannou wins, right? Say he wins. Let's presume he wins.
Yeah. He's not going to want that.
But like, it means that fight does nothing for him. As in, you go 3-0 against the guy, or then you end up losing, and then you lose your title shot. Yeah. Even though you're still 2-1 against the guy.
Yeah, makes no sense for him.
No, not for me, that fight.
No. But I do like the confidence. Like,
I understand it.
He could have easily staked his claim, with a win over.
That fight, I think, makes a lot more sense. The third fight in that one makes a lot more sense further down the line.
Yeah.
When Blades is at a couple of wins and Saint Ngannou's champion, and then there's a storyline to that fight. So yeah, for me anyway.
I'd say then probably someone like Derek Lewis or something makes sense depending on where they fall. But
going deep.
Going deep. I was really impressed with Michael Chiesa's win over Rafael Dos Anjos. I thought he looked huge in there, like insane how he made 155. It's good to see him healthy, and it was a pretty dominant performance over a really good guy.
Yeah, like RDA is never going to be elite at 170. I think we've established that.
Yeah, he's there.
But it's still a good yardstick. As in, RDA is big at 170. He's a big guy. Chiesa looked fucking huge. That dude doesn't look out of place at 170 whatsoever.
No, looks enormous.
Yeah,
he looks like a 185er.
Yeah, and there's definitely some fun fights from him at 170.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how far he can go.
Yeah. I want to talk about Bellator in a minute, but first, because we were talking about the heavyweights, Daniel Cormier, he had an interview this week or last week, whenever it was, and he said that he wants the trilogy fight with Stipe, and he said he wants it by summer. If he doesn't get that fight, I think we all want it. If he doesn't get that fight, he may retire. He doesn't really want anything else. I think maybe if they dangle the heavyweight John Jones fight at him, he'll probably take that. Or maybe not. It depends.
The issue there is getting Jones to take the heavyweight fight.
I agree. But Stipe seems to be still a little bit, laissez-faire on the whole idea. He's like, we'll see. Like,
I'm going to box Tyson Fury.
Jesus. But the only thing with Stipe is he said that he's medically cleared to fight. He had that eye injury, but he did say that he's not in a rush to come back.
Yeah.
So you can kind of look at this in two situations. Like, Stipe, at the end of the day, he shouldn't really be, trying to appease Daniel Cormier.
No, absolutely not.
That's not him, he doesn't have to do that. But then at the same time, you do have to look at it and say, he did give you your title fight.
It's 1-1.
It's 1-1. Like, I mean, you feel like he should give it, even though he shouldn't feel obliged to do it, and he shouldn't feel rushed either, because like if he comes back too quickly after an eye injury and loses, like that's terrible for him. Especially it's Cormier's last fight, so it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think DC's kind of getting play, as in he let Stipe wait a while.
Yeah.
To give him the, I know he gave it to him, but he kind of hung him around for a while.
He fought in between as well.
He fought in between. He was in no rush to give him a rematch either.
Yeah.
I know he gave it to him, but if I was Stipe shouldn't be worrying about DC at all.
No.
I think they'll get the fight made. I think there's too much money in it. It's too big a fight. I mean, that's a pay-per-view headliner on its own. So
it is, yeah. But
in a world where we're quite short of pay-per-view headliners.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it done really well, but I don't think it done as well as I think the UFC thought it was going to do.
Yeah.
So maybe Stipe is looking at it and he's like, well, I could probably fight someone else and probably get the same amount of money. Like, I don't know if he's making a significantly amount more than he would have made against, say,
that would
Francis.
motivate him to take the fight quicker.
Yeah, because I think Francis would do well as well.
Yeah,
it's been some time since they fought, since Stipe and him fought. So
I think it may, like, DC doesn't want to be hanging around waiting for too long. He wants to get out of the game, I think.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him hanging around too long.
Yeah, either do I. How do MMA fans, or how would MMA fans look at Stipe Miocic if, he takes his time, doesn't come back in the summer, and Cormier says, fuck it, I'm done. Like, I can't continue on, and he retires, and Stipe doesn't give him that rematch. How would fans look at him, do you think? Especially like hardcore fans of the sport.
I don't know. It's a funny one. How would I look at him? I don't think I'd slate him too much. I mean, he's beaten him he's beaten him once. Like, it's 1-1. I mean, the rubber match makes so much sense, but like, these guys aren't dodging anyone. He's fought him twice. Like, he's not dodging him.
But you see, you're thinking of this critically, Sean.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the mass.
Yeah, how would Twitter view him?
How would MMA Twitter view him?
They'd probably call him a ducker and
so?
a diver.
Yeah,
probably,
I think so too.
They probably would.
Too. Yeah, but I don't know. I wouldn't think Cormier would push that narrative, though.
No, I don't think Cormier would either. I think it'd be a very much a shame if the third fight didn't happen.
I agree.
Yeah.
But the weird thing would be, or the funny thing would be, is that if Cormier does retire, the reason why I don't think he would push that narrative is, like, one, because I don't think he's that type of guy, but also he's going to still be an analyst, so I don't think he's going to want that to bleed into his work there as well. Yeah. But yeah, quickly on Bellator. Cyborg beat Julia Budd.
She looked good.
Very dominant performance. I thought it might have been her best performance since she got to the UFC. I mean, like, prior. Now, you can look at that a few different ways. And the way I want to look at it is, do you think that Cyborg, do you think that people counted out Cris Cyborg from the GOAT conversation too quickly? Or do you think that loss at Amanda Nunes solidified Amanda Nunes as the GOAT female fighter?
See, it's hard because they're coming from two different generations of MMA.
Great observation.
Yeah, Cyborg is like the OG, one of the OG women in MMA. Whereas, like, I probably discounted her a little too quickly, but I've grown up watching Amanda more than I've watching Cyborg. Look, if the rematch should happen at some point in the future,
it won't though.
No, it's not gonna.
It's absolutely not gonna.
And if Amanda beats her twice, then GOAT status confirmed. I don't know. I don't think she's been discounted. I think people were.
Well, I think Amanda Nunes is now the consensus. GOAT.
I don't think she got this. I don't think it's fair to say she was discounted just because people are consensus picking Amanda. I mean, she's 100% still in the conversation, and if you are adamant to me that Cyborg is the GOAT, like, there's an argument there.
I think there's 100% an argument there, and I think it's based on what you just said. What you said about the different generations, I think that's important because, like, you're a football fan, so, like, if you're looking at, say,
United in the 90s,
or say go even footballers, so say like Maradona or Pele against, say, Cristiano Ronaldo.
You said Pele, so American, Rob.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Right, I said it like the Pele, the fucking fighter.
Yeah,
the
Pele,
old MMA fighter.
Anyway,
against
I know what you mean.
Ronaldo and Messi. Yeah. That's not really you can't really compare them. And I know that there's not as much of a gap in terms of time between Cyborg and Amanda Nunes because they fought at a similar time. But in terms of women's MMA, 2005 when Cyborg was dominant and when she kind of started is completely different than now what we see. Like, you can look at, that's going to go off, we need to press that. You can look at, say, Ronda Rousey. You can look at that era of Ronda Rousey and how quickly she fizzled out and that style fizzled out from women's MMA. Women's MMA is moving on so quickly.
Yeah, the point totally stands.
Yeah, I think the point totally stands. I think she's there. She's in the conversation. And if you want to look at down through her record and say, look how dominant she was, she beat, you know, generations of fighters. And Amanda Nunes is this generation of fighter. It's no, like, she was competitive, like, against most girls. So it's no shame in what she done. So I think that point is still there. Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith are in a feud. This is probably the biggest news in MMA this week. How weird is that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a feud anyone picked.
No.
And I mean, if they had a fight, I don't think anyone's picking Stephen A. Smith.
No.
Have you seen his pad work?
Oh,
Jesus.
Get up out of that.
But like, fine doing pad work, but like, have a bit of self-awareness to know that you look like fucking shit on the pads. I mean, I wouldn't put pad work of me. It'd be pathetic. It would be absolutely pathetic. Unless people want to pay to watch it, and then because it's so pathetic, then you can pay me.
We'll start a Patreon.
Yeah,
for
pay me
Sean's
my
pad
money.
work.
But like,
Patreon.
yeah, go on, explain to the people, Rob, what happened.
Yeah, so Stephen A. Smith was on the ESPN broadcast after Cerrone versus McGregor. It's been a few weeks. He said some things. He said that Cowboy quit. He said some very, you can say uneducated things, and we'll get to that. But he said some things that Joe Rogan took offence to. Joe Rogan went on his podcast, said that Stephen A. Smith, you know, nice guy, but shouldn't be talking about fighting. He has no, you know, he just shouldn't be talking about fighting.
Uneducated, essentially, is what he said.
He clearly doesn't know this sport in particular. And then Stephen A. Smith came back and he had a very weird response because Joe Rogan was upset about Stephen A. Smith saying that Cowboy quit and said that this is a very different sport than, say, the ball sports, you know, like a game, like basketball, where you can go out and you can say, oh, that guy choked. But in this, it's different because when a guy chokes, or in your, you know, mind he chokes, he's getting knocked the fuck out. He's getting hurt badly. So it's different. So Stephen A. Smith's response didn't really get into that. It kind of got into like, you know, I have every right to be talking about fighting as much as you do. And then he got into some weird stuff. But I first want to get your reaction to this whole feud thing. Whose side do you stand on? I assume it's Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, yeah. I mean, there's a the Irish listeners we have will know of Eamon Dunphy. Yeah, Spill for his bill.
Yeah.
But
at least he had a football background.
yeah, at least like.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith is a guy who people in America are very familiar with. He does all the boxing broadcasts and stuff. He's a guy who probably does bring some numbers. We spoke about this earlier. As in, people know who he is. He's a familiar face. If you're, say, a newbie tuning into ESPN MMA, you know who Stephen A. Smith is.
Yeah.
Whereas we will know who DC and the guys are.
Yeah. I only know Stephen A. Smith because of Mayweather McGregor. Yeah. That's when I first was introduced to him.
I don't give a fuck about him.
Yeah.
I don't like him. I think he talks sensationalist bullshit.
Polemicist.
Yeah, I think he. And Noel's so right about this. We were chatting about it earlier. This stuff sells and it gets people talking. Like, he doesn't have to be right to get people talking about him. He doesn't have to make sense. He doesn't have to have any logic behind his arguments. This is what he is. He's a name, he's a personality, and he talks all this sensationalistic bullshit. Yeah,
and I think that's the problem that Joe Rogan has, and it's the problem that a lot of journalists have, is that Stephen A. Smith is being put on this platform, ESPN, which is supposed to be, you know, the platform for the UFC. It's supposed to be guys who are telling you about the sport from an expert point of view. And you have Joe Rogan there, who is an expert in MMA. You might disagree with some of the stuff he says, but he is an expert in MMA. And then you have a guy in Stephen A. Smith. When you have other people like Ariel Helwani, Brett Okamoto, all on the roster, as Luke Thomas pointed out, and you have someone like Stephen A. Smith who, you know, he clearly doesn't have much experience with the sport. And I think he even admits that. And I don't think that means that you can't, or that he can't talk about MMA. But I think the problem is that he's talking about it from a perspective where you should be an expert.
Yeah.
You know, ESPN post-fight, you should be an expert there. If they wanted to bring him on as a talking head and introduce him as Stephen A. Smith, okay, he doesn't know much about MMA. He's a new guy. Let's get your opinion. You're kind of new to the sport. Let's hear it. That's different. But bringing him on as, you know, beside Joe Rogan as a peer, as an equal, I think that's the problem.
I think as well, as in, it's very much like if you look at the biggest sports in the world, NFL, football, basketball, you have the journalism is so diluted, as in there's so many quality journalists, but they just get drowned out by this fucking noise of people saying stuff on Twitter, on telly, on everything. And it's, whereas MMA, it's not this totally mainstream sport yet. And so generally the media you see on TV are guys like DC, Joe Rogan.
Yeah. They're still kind of underground.
Yeah,
kind of
Ariel.
Type. Yeah.
Brett Okamoto. Who else? Oh, like all the other broadcasters, like...
even like Megan O'Leary and stuff like that.
Names are escaping me right now, but you know what I mean? As in, they're still guys who know what they're talking about. There hasn't been this dilution of like noise just been constantly put out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And
this is kind of, Stephen A. Smith's been put on there is kind of this like just
insurgent.
Yeah, just a bit of noise, a bit like a fucking chirping bird, and you're just like, shut up, Stephen. Like.
Yeah. I think that's what it is as well. It's very unusual.
Yeah, we're not used to it.
Yeah, for the types of MMA commentary that we get or analysis we get, it's a very unusual way. Because that First Take show, I never watched it, but it's pretty much Stephen A. Smith and it's what's his face? The other boxing guy. I can't remember his name. It's
Max Kellerman.
Max Kellerman. Yeah. It's either him or the other fucking Teddy Atlas or something.
Yeah, Teddy Atlas is quite good on boxing.
Yeah, but they're just like, yapping at each other. It's like, it's not. The whole idea of it is like a gossipy kind of thing. Like, let's fucking kill each other.
It's like chewing gum for the eyes, Robert.
Chewing gum for the eyes. That's what it is. And the ears.
And ears, apologies, yeah.
Yeah, both.
But, so, again, with the likes of NBA and NFL, educated people on the sport know what they like, what they don't like. I don't want to listen to this noise about the sports I follow.
Exactly.
So I know who I can follow on social media or what outlets to follow to get the content I want. And now Stephen A. Smith has kind of been forced upon us on ESPN, and it's like, listen to him. I don't want to listen to him. He's talking brown.
Yeah, especially when there's others there that can do the job better. Yeah. The weird one I thought was when he took credit for ratings.
Lad, come out of the fog.
Yeah, like I know you said that maybe he brings ratings, and he probably brings ratings to like First Take and stuff like that. Yeah, but like, come on. That was after Cowboy versus fucking McGregor.
Stephen A. Smith, you brought absolutely no ratings to that Conor McGregor pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You were a familiar face for the NFL guys, the NBA guys, the boxing guys who tuned in and who watch ESPN on a regular basis. That's all you were.
Here's the scenario. The ESPN producers are in there and they're like, okay, we need to make sure we have everything in line. How do we boost ratings for McGregor versus Cerrone?
Stephen A. Smith.
That's the one. Let's bring him in.
It's ridiculous. I don't see how you can defend his comments. Like,
yeah, we got a question if you want to pull it up on the screen, because this is almost a defense of Stephen A. Smith.
Sorry, before you jump to that, I do think there's a little bit of an irony in him saying Cowboy quit and us jumping on his back, as in MMA fans who perceive themselves to be educated about the sport are happy to say a Cowboy's a choker and stuff, but when this uneducated guy Stephen A. Smith, who we don't like,
that's what I want to get into.
We're kind of getting like, we don't like him. We wanna. It's kind of closed-minded a little bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this question is. I want to pull this up.
The question is
Chris Edwards. So Chris Edwards on our community tab on YouTube. Go check us out every Wednesday. Add some questions, we'll answer them here on the show. I can't seriously be the only one who agrees with Stephen A. His douchiness and lack of athleticism aside, the man has an understanding of high-level competitions due to his exposure over the years. Okay, MMA is starting to be considered a legitimate sport, and I think it's a bad look for MMA fans to create a human shield around the injured calf that is Cowboy. That was nice. We're acting like little children who won't let the kids play with our toys. Textbook inferiority complex, Robert. Pronounce that word.
Go on.
An MMA athlete should be criticised just the same way as they are in other sports. I think this whole thing is more an indication of how petty and childish MMA fans can be. Connor, 2 ends again. Chris, good question, but 2 ends again. Absolutely steamrolled Cowboy. It's entirely fair to say that Cowboy didn't show up and that it was a shit performance. He said great podcast. Great
do you want to go through that and break it down from your point of view, and then I'll do it?
Yeah. So I don't agree with Stephen A. Smith. I think that the exposure over the years that he has and expertise in this thing in particular, I think that's wrong. Like, I think you can have exposure to boxing. That doesn't mean you should be talking about MMA. I have exposure to MMA. I talked about it for the last few years. I'm not going to go on and give my expert opinion about golf because I know nothing about golf. It's the same thing. I don't think that really stands. I do think that what you said and now what Chris is saying, I do think it's funny that Michael Bisping went out and he kind of said a similar thing, not in the same words, but he said that Cowboy quit. He said that he'd never be hurt by shoulder strikes. But now because Stephen A. Smith said it,
You can't say that you wouldn't be hurt by shoulder strikes.
that's what Michael Bisping said. I know, but we'll just take it as it stands. But most people said, yeah, it's Michael Bisping. Okay, let's go for it. But I do think there has to be some consideration for the context and who's saying it. Because
I agree.
Clearly Stephen A. Smith is kind of just taking the notes that he's been given and he's saying, Cowboy has a glass jaw because he lost some fights by KO, and he's just kind of saying the bullet points, and there's no real insight into it. It's just words. And I think at least with guys who pay attention to the sport, it's different. But I do think we get very defensive over the sport, and I think it's because of that, because it still feels underground. We still kind of hold it. We want to protect it a little bit, and I do think that's true. That's why I said I think it's fine to let Stephen A. Smith come in and talk about it. I don't think that's the problem. But don't bring him in and pretend that he's
this authority on the sport.
Exactly. Don't pretend that he's that. Bring him in and say, this is Stephen A. Smith. He works for ESPN. He's been here a long time. He's getting into MMA. And here's his take. But let's not treat it like they treated it on the broadcast, because they treated it like he was an expert. And that was the problem.
Yeah, one of the points I want to pick up on is where he said an MMA athlete should be criticised just the same way as they are in other sports. I don't necessarily agree with that. I get the point, but MMA is different than NBA.
Yeah, it is different.
I can criticise a guy for choking on a free throw. I can't criticise a man for not showing up in a fight. If you step inside the cage, you're not quitting. Yeah, to an extent. I mean, you can tap and stuff, but it's a different argument. It's a can of worms, big time. But no, they're two different sports. I mean, you're putting your life on the line every time you step into the cage, and you're putting your ankles on the line every time you step onto an NBA court. That's about it. I don't think they should be criticised the same way, and I think the people doing the criticising should at least have some experience on the sport. Again, absolutely fine. Same way when interview a celebrity at the fight, and they're like, "Oh, what's your opinion on the fight?" He's not been offered to us as this authority on the sport. The
context is given on what this is. This is a celebrity talking about MMA.
Yeah, so bring in Stephen A. Smith, who's this recognisable face for people, and it's like, oh, here's boxing analyst Stephen A. Smith. What's your opinion on the fight?
Exactly.
Don't stand him up, and his points may have some truth to them. That's for your own opinion, but I don't want him to be pushed as this all-knowing source of knowledge on the sport when he's not. Yeah,
I agree. And then you're going to get comments saying that either of you guys, and you can have that opinion as well, but we're not on ESPN. Yeah. And I don't want to be I don't want to be watching ESPN and having a guy who clearly is less knowledgeable about the sport than I am, because I want to be watching guys who are more knowledgeable, and that's the way it should be. Joe Rogan.
The reason we listen to guys like Luke Thomas, Joe Rogan, Daniel Comey is because they have their brains are so knowledgeable on this sport. Listening to DC break a fight down, listen to Luke break an argument down bit by bit by bit, and just listening to Rogan generally is an enjoyable experience. You're listening to this guy, and it's I can listen to this in the pub. Exactly. As in my mate, as in my dad will turn to me and say, "Oh, that lad quit in the fight."
I know, and it's
it's like watching your dad on the telly.
It's ridiculous, but fun conversation.
As in this is the thing. It goes back to this point again. As in, bullshit sells. Is what it is. And we're after getting all hyped up about it and stuff.
I know.
So.
I
need to get off that fishing hook. He caught me.
Let us know in the comments below anyway what your thoughts are on Stephen A. Smith. But we're not dismissing your question either. I think that was a great question and a great take.
It is. It's totally what raising.
Yeah, 100%. Dustin Poirier, did you see this? Dustin Poirier says he still wants to fight Nate Diaz, and then for some reason he went on this weird tangent saying, "But I'd like to fight him in Zuffa boxing." Why?
Who wants to see that?
Why?
As in, this is why do I want to see two MMA fighters in a boxing ring? Why do I want to see that? As in, you can have an MMA fight and just have it as a stand-up fight.
It's stupid, isn't it? Yeah. Let's remove some of the tools that you have been working on for the past 20 years, so you can just punch each other in the face.
But they can have an MMA fight and just not go to the ground.
Yeah, have a gentleman's agreement if you want, whatever. I just think it's silly. But this is what, I'm not taking credit for this, right? But this is what I said. When we were talking about Zuffa boxing, when Dana White was talking about its inception, I said, when it starts, it's going to be a lot of MMA fighters boxing each other. That's the start. And then they'll eventually get some boxers in. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the fucking freak show shit of, oh my God, he's an MMA fighter, now they're boxing. Great stuff.
The thing is as well, I understand why MMA fighters want to go to boxing because there's far more money in it.
Yeah.
But 2 MMA fighters boxing doesn't earn more money than fighting an actual boxer would. Because it doesn't have the freak show element. It's just 2 guys having a boxing fight.
Yeah. I guess, it's not freak show.
As in, Dustin would earn more money fighting... Nate would earn more money fighting Floyd Mayweather than he does, obviously, to fight.
Yeah.
But, like, they get paid MMA money to box.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is my point.
That's a good point. So I said freak show. I don't mean it in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean. I think you're right. I think the whole freak show and the whole intrigue about them boxing is them testing their skills against another boxer, not against another MMA fighter.
I could watch 2 MMA fighters box in a sparring session.
Yeah.
So
You can watch 2 MMA. Like, if they fight anyway, they're probably going to box. You know, it's bizarre. I hope that doesn't happen.
Thank you, next.
I just think it's a fucking bizarre thing. I saw this earlier on, not too much left, but Frankie Edgar said that I think he was on Joe Rogan. He said that he's on the last fight of his contract and he's looking for big money next. Where'd you like to see Frankie Edgar go from here?
Retirement.
Retirement?
Yeah.
He done?
Just call it quits. Like, the man's a legend of the game. What does he need to prove? He'll probably end up in PFL or somewhere like that. Bellator, like, that's probably where he'll end up.
Yeah.
Do you see him winning a title at Bellator?
Bellator, lightweight.
I'm not sure, man.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not at lightweight now. Say 45.
Lightweight. What about? I was thinking Frank Yeager of the time. 45 or 35 is if he wants to go there. Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. You never know.
I do personally just have a thing. I like to see fighters go out too early.
Yeah.
I mean, go out early rather than too late.
Yeah.
Like so,
I
and I think Frank he's taken some damage in his last few fights. Yeah, just call it quits, man.
I'm sure he has cash.
Legend of the game. Like he's Mount Rushmore.
He is. So absolute legend.
Call it quits, man.
Call it quits. Last thing, Dominic Reyes. So John Jones, Dominic Reyes fight next week, next weekend. Should be a good fight. Interested. We'll talk about it all next week. But I just thought it was funny. He brought up the point that he admits that John Jones' eye pokes are a serious problem, and he's actually going to warn the referee before it. Which John Jones, he just loved a little eye poke. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Grand, we'll talk about that next week, Rob.
Yeah.
That's our breakdown of the fight.
We'll talk about that next week, but leave your early predictions in the comments below. But Sean, we have loads of questions.
Yeah.
So first question is from Oisin O'Regan. Why are people even talking about Stephen A. Smith? My granny would legit batter him. Have you seen the state of him hitting the pads? And then he goes on and talks about how clueless he is. But yeah, why are people talking about Stephen A. Smith? And we just talked about him, so
I was chatting with Noel about this earlier. I think most reasonably minded people have the same opinion in that Stephen A. Smith doesn't have a clue what he's talking about when it comes to MMA. And the reason people are talking about him is he's very much a modern day sensationalist journalist but the thing is, this sensationalism brings eyeballs and it gets people talking, be it rightly or wrongly. But people are talking about him. People are talking about was Cowboy shit? Did he bottle it? Did he choke? Was it a joke of a performance? Who is Stephen A. Smith to say it was a joke of a performance?
Yeah.
You can say he didn't turn up, he didn't perform to his highest, but like to say it was a joke of a product or of a performance. I was thinking about something else there. That's people are talking about it because it's sensationalist bullshit is what it is.
But that's what it is. I think the main thing is, and we're all guilty of this, we love a bit of gossip.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we love a bit of gossip.
We want it hooked to our veins.
Sean watches Love Island like you wouldn't even imagine. He loves that shit.
Yeah.
I'm not as much into that, but I do love a bit of gossip, and everybody does. Even when people say I don't like that, people like to hear other people talk shit about other people, especially when you have someone as famous as Joe Rogan talking about someone as famous, relatively famous, not as famous as Joe, as Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
I think people just love that kind of stuff.
It was a Twitter on a broadcast.
Yeah,
it was a tweet on a broadcast.
Yeah.
It was the type of bullshit that you see some clueless idiot tweet and say, except Stephen A. Smith is generally a lot more respected within the media than some clueless tweeter.
Yeah, and at the end of the day as well, like when you look on, say, Reddit and you hear fans talking about like the state of MMA journalism, and you even talk about or even see other journalists, like Lou Thomas talks about this quite a bit, where he says that he thinks MMA journalism is a little bit of a joke. But the reason why it's a joke is because when they put out articles of copying and pasting people's tweets into a page, the reason why they do that is because other people click on it.
Yeah.
Their audience wants to see that stuff. It is what it is.
Yeah, good
know?
Journalism doesn't actually do that well.
No, it doesn't.
As in, like, even if you look
You have
at
to pay for it. The
yeah,
Athletic.
yeah. Even Luke's videos, like Luke's videos are unbelievably insightful, and he doesn't even class himself as a journalist.
Yeah.
But like the ones where he's breaking down arguments and stuff like this, it doesn't do that well. Like.
No, just doesn't.
The stuff this does well, this bullshit, this crap.
I know, and that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it gives you a bit of insight into the mind of people, I think. But yeah, that's why.
I don't mind people talking about it either. I think it's just when people are aware that they've been like caught on a hook.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Up next.
I have to click on it.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his name? He always asks questions. What a legend.
Zeneb.
That's not it.
It's definitely a silent. There's definitely something silent.
The Z is silent. It's silent. Neb Rem. I'm going to say that. Usman said he would rather fight GSP than Conor, 2 ends. Would GSP come back for a Conor 2 ends fight? Conor McGregor. Sorry, I don't want to insult your spelling. It's just funny.
Everyone takes the McGregor fight. Don't give me this bullshit that you'd rather fight someone than someone. If he's offered both fights, let's say pick one. Which one pays more money?
Yeah, and I think GSP at this stage of GSP's career, he wants big fights. Yeah, he either wants a really big challenge and a big fight like Khabib.
I was actually talking about Usman there. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
If Usman is offered GSP and Conor, he takes Conor all day.
Yeah. 100%.
And the same GSP would 100% come back for a Conor fight.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, first one, both of them is true. But yeah, GSP as well. Like the thing I really respect about GSP is when he was in his prime, he fought all the contenders possible, and he beat all the contenders possible. He beat like generations of welterweights, which was very impressive. But at this stage of his career, if he is to come back, he said it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying, I'm going to come back because I want big fights. That's what I'm going to come back for, or the big challenge in Khabib. So
I've been listening to a lot of stuff lately, and it's like, obviously money isn't necessarily the biggest motivator for a lot of these guys, but there comes a point where money does talk. So you can get offered a legacy fight or say the biggest payday, and there comes a point where it's just too much money to turn down. Obviously they will put aside certain amounts of money to take a legacy fight or to make a fight happen, but there comes a point where money talks. It's just too much to turn down.
It's excessive. It's too much. Yeah. Excellent. Linus asked what's the most overused MMA cliches right now. He suggested there are levels to this game. He's sick of that one. And any fighter claiming that they could see
I like
just
this
a
question.
bit of fear in their opponent's eyes during a face-off. Give me a break. What's your I guess is this worst overused MMA cliche?
He looked nervous walking out.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you know? How do you know? Yeah. As in, every fighter walks out differently. Obviously, they're all nervous. The Cowboy talks about it all the time. DC likes to run out. Conor likes to kind of stroll out and take it easy. I mean, we
all become like amateur psychologists.
Yeah, you can take it. You can interpret it whatever way you want. As in, is DC running off a little bit of pent up nervous energy? Yeah. Is Conor just like calm and stuff? It's bullshit. There's loads of them though.
Mine is this is the best camp I've ever had.
Oh man.
I know you kind of have to say that.
Yeah.
Not only because you want to portray that to the media and to your opponent, but probably it's a mental thing as well.
Yeah.
But come on, give me a break, as Linus said.
And you know what the best bit is as well? Fighters who, this is exactly what they'll say. They'll be like, I know it's a cliche, but this genuinely is the best camp I've ever had.
Yeah.
It's like, and then after the fight, it's like, oh yeah, fucking ruptured my ACL 2 weeks out from the fight.
Yeah. Come on, man. Stop lying
so,
to us.
Yeah, there's actually loads of them.
There is loads of them, yeah.
And I can't even think of some of them off the spot.
No, but there's tons of them.
Let us know some of the comments.
Yeah, let us know some of the comments.
There's definitely some crackers.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the one I'll fight whoever is next thing, which I think in 90% of the situations that's not really true. They say, oh, I'll fight whoever's next, but really, no. Yeah, you want something advantageous.
I'll fight anyone if the money's right.
Yeah. Anyway, next up, great question.
I enjoyed that. Yeah, let us know your favourite cliches in the comments.
Linus again. Las Vegas has Reyes versus Jones at 5-1 odds. I assume that's 5-1 for Reyes to win.
Yeah.
In the US market, that means bet one bald eagle on Reyes and win 5 cans of Budweiser. So it's bet 100 to win 500. Someone said Jones seems to be playing with his food these days, and I do think the combination of Jones' lack of interest and others catching up makes it a good bet. What do you think Reyes' chances are? Also, Weili Zhang, we'll get that first to the John Jones bit. So John Jones, so 5-1 for Reyes. What do you think of that?
I think it's probably fair.
Yeah.
I mean, the 5-1 could be interesting if you're looking at. I mean, we've heard John talk about needing to get motivated for fights and stuff, and we've seen how he looked against Santos. I mean, a judge gave that fight to Santos, like, so.
And you can't disagree with it too much.
You couldn't really. It was a close fight.
You can see it.
I think we'll see a similar fight from Jones that we saw against Smith and Santos. I don't expect Jones to blow me away here. Would I back 5-1? Probably not. Maybe a couple of fights down the line from Reyes. If this fight hadn't happened so soon from, I'd have been more interested, but not right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you want to throw some money on that, I wouldn't blame you, because it's pretty large considering Jones's last performance, which wasn't great. I think this happens, doesn't it, when you get somebody so good? It seems like it's almost the guy who you don't expect to beat the guy that comes up and wins. And I just don't see anybody at light heavyweight, kind of like what Daniel Cormier was talking about. He thinks the only way Jones loses is if he goes up to heavyweight, and he loses a lot of his attributes that he has, like his length and his size and stuff. I don't see Reyes winning this fight, but 5-1 is nice.
Yeah,
it is nice.
Yeah, I mean the price itself is nice. I'm not sure I see an outrageous amount of value in it. I think it's fairly priced, given what we know about both fighters so far and how they've looked. I expect a similar. I don't expect Jones to blow me away here, given what I've seen in his last 2 fights. I think he's fighting. I definitely think he's fighting not to lose. And I think we've seen that in the last 2 fights.
Do you think that harms his legacy? Because this is something that I was thinking about. It was maybe something I was going to do a video on. Jones is in this position, right, where he's kind of doing what we want fighters to do. He's a champion in a division, and he's defending against the number 1 contenders. But for some reason, for me, even though that's what I want most champions to do, I'm like, just go to heavyweight. You know, I want him to go down the route that I don't want a lot of fighters to do. But I think in his situation, it's warranted because he's been so dominant. So do you think that him staying around and beating guys that aren't, I'm not saying they're not good fighters, but they're not very exciting challengers right now?
It's a weak division. At the end of the day, I mean, if you are looking at the form of a horse and you're going through this division, the form doesn't stack up particularly well at this division.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, that's why people are clamouring for him to go to heavyweight. I mean, he's cleared out the division, so you're kind of just picking what's left.
That's kind of why people are clamouring for a middleweight in Adesanya to come to fight.
Yeah, I mean, the Adesanya fight is more interesting than anyone at heavyweight right now.
Which is stupid, isn't it?
And I don't think Jones. I think it harms Jones' legacy if he doesn't go up to heavyweight.
I think it does. I think it does too. I really do. He's cleared out that division. You know, he's beaten all the guys. There's definitely guys there. I just don't know. But if Reyes wins, is that the biggest upset in MMA history, UFC history, or do you think just because of lack of form, maybe not? Surely odds-wise, actually, it must be up there. I'd be interested to know what the biggest price-wise upset was. I think it might have been Holly Holm
against Ronda.
I think that possibly, might have been it.
I think it's in recent times it's probably one of the biggest.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great question. Brian War, do you think Conor will ever have the same home, or will ever have the home support he once had? So in Ireland, I don't think so. I think that the support that he had back in the day, Aldo time, and pre-Aldo, Chad Mendes Aldo, was an incredible level of support that I don't think he'll ever see. He was voted in national surveys as the most admired sports star in Ireland, and MMA just wasn't anywhere in terms of viewership versus all the other sports. So that's kind of tells you how special Conor was as an athlete. I don't think he's ever going to get there, and it's too the stuff he's done. It's just
look, we spoke about this to death. People are emotionally invested in Conor McGregor, the same way they were in Kobe Bryant, who's just passed away. Guys like that, LeBron, guys who sort of transcend an actual sport. As in, half of Ireland didn't give a fuck about MMA, but they knew who Conor McGregor was.
Yeah.
They liked to see him win at the time. It's very hard to support McGregor because of some of the stuff that's been written about him and he's done, because then you're tarnishing yourself with a similar brush, and you're like, okay, I can stand by that, and he won't ever have that sort of support, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Salva Stola, hey, already did this, so I guess you want 2 questions. What do you think about Jorge versus Snoozman for the welterweight?
I like that, Snoozman,
yeah. I like it. I think if the Conor fight doesn't happen for Jorge, I think that's the fight to make.
That's the fight to make if the Conor one doesn't happen.
So yeah, I like it. I think it's a tough fight for Jorge. I think it's definitely Snoozman will be the favourite, and he also showed he has a lot of heart in that Colby fight.
He did, yeah.
But then sometimes you can't discredit or dismiss but like momentum. And even though Usman had an incredible performance, he's the champion, of course he has momentum. Jorge has this weird kind of momentum right now, and you can't discredit that, so you never know.
That's kind of what came into my head around Jorge is, I mean, the time I picked Israel Adesanya to beat Robert Whittaker and Gastelum, it's like you kind of just get a feeling. Yeah, you just get a feeling, and you might get a feeling now that it's just Jorge's time.
Yeah, you never know.
It's Jorge's time, baby.
Like if
Street Jesus.
If Usman gets into a fight like he did with Covington against Jorge, I'll take Jorge in that fight.
Who knows? Sometimes you kind of just have to put like rational thought aside. It's kind of fun to do that. Like that's what we like doing.
Yeah.
So that's what I like doing, because don't have that much rational thoughts on it.
Yeah, so it's easy to push aside. Yeah. Great stuff.
Chiesa beat RDA, but not nearly as impressively as Usman. Does Chiesa pose even a minor threat to Usman?
I don't think so. He's absolutely gigantic though, Chiesa.
Man, he's big.
How did he make 155? Anyway, I just don't think so. I think that is a tough fight for him. His stand-up is still very, very limited, and you even saw it against RDA. His takedowns are great. He can take the back like nobody else can. Well, that's a lie. Other people can. But, he's great at taking the back. But does he do that to Usman? I don't think so. That's my Home Alone impression for today.
I don't think so. Yeah. I do think there's some very fun fights from at welter.
100%, yeah.
I would be interested in him and Colby, like he's called out. It's a fun fight.
Yeah, that's fun.
That dude is big. I actually don't. Normally, we always talk about like guys coming up from like it's such a big jump from lightweight to welter. I don't think he's at a disadvantage at all. That dude is big.
Yeah, he is. So. Like, he used to have that like Jesus Christ physique, like the real lanky, skinny physique. Yeah. But now he's like jacked for what he was. Yeah. Just me. I'm just curious. I don't understand Conor's coach calling for Gaethje next at 170. If Khabib is the goal, why doesn't Conor just go down to 150-ish? He's looking at murderer's row otherwise at 170. Your thoughts?
Because Conor just doesn't want... Conor wants to make the 155 division at 170, and then he'll cut weight when there's a belt.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And do you know why? Because he can.
Yeah, because he can dictate. Like this, the whole... We spoke about this, as in... He doesn't have to fight at lightweight to get a title shot at lightweight. So why would he?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
I don't blame him at all.
No.
Can.
It's on the UFC, really.
Yeah.
Like, if the UFC want to enforce that, they should say, Conor, you can have fights at 170, but we're not awarding you at 155.
Yeah, we're not going to bump you up in the rankings like we just did at lightweight for fighting at welterweight.
Yeah,
like it's ridiculous.
I mean, I know a lot of other fighters probably have more. Maybe would feel like they have to do it, like for themselves, like it's a thing they need to do. But most fighters, I would guess, if they got the option, they were like, you can go fight at 170, and if you win, you're still working towards your 155 goal. They'll say, great stuff, don't put away, unbelievable, I'll do that. So yeah, you don't blame Conor here, you blame the UFC.
As in, Anthony Pettis didn't move up the lightweight rankings when he fought Wonderboy Thompson.
Conor did.
Yeah. It's stupid.
That's a bizarre one,
insanity.
Wasn't it?
As in, leave him where he is in the rankings, please. At least keep some sanity to the rankings. It's mental.
Imagine being Justin Gaethje.
You'd be fucking raging.
Like he was absolutely pissed off not getting the fight, and then for some reason he gets bypassed by.
It's fucked over again, like.
Unbelievable.
Fuming.
Yeah. You can get that one, Sean.
Do you think Holloway should get an immediate rematch against Volkanovski? And if yes, do you think he is able to fix the issues he had in their last bout? Rob?
No, I don't think so. I don't really like immediate rematches if it's decisive enough, unless I mean, you can make the argument that Holloway was dominant at 145, but no, I don't like it, and it's partially because I'd like to see that fight down the line when I think Holloway doesn't fix the issues that he has, because I think he has the potential to do that. I think he's an excellent fighter, but I just think doing it straight away, you could potentially kill off him as a contender and put him in a bad situation. So I think no, I'd say wait, give him another fight, let him rebuild himself, and there's plenty of fights in that division for Volkanovski.
Yeah. Look, if Max called for an immediate rematch, I don't think he's in a. I think he's in a position where he can call for that, given what he's done.
I
at
do
featherweight.
agree with that. Yeah.
Is it something I want to see? I agree with you, and we know the record with immediate rematches. It's not great.
That doesn't mean anything really, but
totally uncorrelated.
Yeah, but it just tells you. It potentially just tells you that it is difficult to win it for obvious reasons. You just lost to the guy, and you have to make changes.
Yeah, I agree with your reasoning. I think Max is a guy who we've seen anytime he's taken a loss, he's come back better and stronger. So I do think he can learn. I do think he can fix the issues, just not in an immediate rematch.
Yeah.
So,
Jim Morrison, does Jairzinho Rosenstruck knock out Francis Ngannou? Wow.
No,
I don't think so. But Rosenstruck has. He's an interesting guy. I don't know. I underestimate him a little bit. Like, he's not the biggest guy at heavyweight, is he? What's his weight? I'm not sure. I'm not going to try to find it, but I don't think so. Francis Ngannou seems to have a great chin, and yeah, could decision him. He could decision him. You never know.
Yeah, Derek Lewis decision him.
Yeah, you never know.
No, he doesn't knock him out, in my opinion.
Yeah. Jim Morrison again. Do you think Jose Aldo needs to retire after his loss to Marlon Moraes? He has 4 losses in his last 7 and could potentially be losing his reputation, or moving to Bellator as an option. We'll start with that one. So he's getting a title fight, it looks, so that's a no. If he loses that one, who knows? I don't think he will, because the argument there is, well, he just fought for a title, which is ridiculous anyway. But like, for me, Aldo looked good in his last fight. He did, and it was close. So like, I understand why he's accepting this fight and saying, I felt good, I thought I won the fight, fair enough. So I don't think he should retire. I
think the main reason people are kind of like talking of retirement in regards to Aldo is it's kind of like, where does he go?
Yeah.
As in, he's not going to get a title shot at featherweight anytime soon, because he's lost to Max. Well, maybe Volkanovski if he got a win or stuff. But
although Volkanovski beat him as well. Decision wasn't great.
It's kind of like, what's there for him? And I mean,
he's in a Frankie situation.
Yeah, he's very much in a Frankie situation where he's a legend of the game. He's beaten everyone at some point or another. He's beaten everyone that's been put in front of him. But it's kind of like, at this point, what do you do to him? Like, as in, if he loses this one to Cejudo, you're very much like, where are you going now?
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because like, he has close relationships to these two fighters, and his career has almost turned out like them. So you have Frankie Edgar. He fought Frankie Edgar a couple of times, or at least once, and Uriah Faber. They're all very similar. Like, they were like dominant champions, lost, couldn't get back to that title, kept losing, dropped some weight classes, and then lost. So we'll see what happens with Aldo. But yeah, similar route. That's it.
That's us.
Great stuff. What a show, Sean. What a show. Thanks to everyone for watching or listening on audio or watching on YouTube. Give us a like, because that does help us out quite a bit. And subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell, the notification bell, to keep up with all the videos that we do, because I can see that not everybody's getting the notifications for the show. YouTube is being YouTube. So yeah, do that. Check us out next week, and yeah, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of it.